Coming up on this program, we show you how to get connected. Find out how to choose an internet service provider. Discover the newest form of communication, electronic mail.
Ways down and ready to ride. One by one, billion by billion, been holding up half the sky. Raise your hand if you're ready and willing. If you know it's time. Time for a girl on time. Time for a girl on time. Time for
Hello, welcome. Oh, look at me. Still covering the news. If you didn't catch it, last night there was a live chase and we covered it, but that is not where we're at today. So, momentarily, yes, that's better. We're in court today. Petty court, as we love to call it. Oh, you guys are so sweet. I love you guys. We are off to Thurston County. We have a TPO. We have a new judge. We did have a wonderful night last night with the chase. It was great because the computer worked. The audio seemed to work. It worked. Work. Anyways, this is a long case, so why don't we get it started? I think that would be a good idea. But I would love to hear what you had for dinner. If you didn't like what you had for dinner, tell me what you wish you had for dinner. You can always tell me in the comments, too, if you're watching this later on. I know there are people that do this. Chuck, we've been thinking of you. We hope you are doing well. Yeah. Thank you for being here. We're so glad to see you. Our little family here, you know how it is. We are a family. We're a family that sits around and pokes fun at people in court, and that's okay.
All right. Did you print the calendar for me?
Not everyone can
That
have.
was
No,
when.
it's not an interpreter.
Okay.
Not everybody can have.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pro Tem Schumacher.
Hi, call
I'm
me.
here just to hear one case. So the regular judge is going to come out in a minute, but I'm here on a case that the judges cannot hear due to a conflict. And so I'm just going to hear this one case and then we'll take a short recess. If you have your cameras on, if you're on Zoom, you can turn your cameras off. If you have something else to do, you don't have to sit in the courtroom for this case. But this is going to be the protection order case 24-000140, David Lee Kohler, represented by Mr. Laughlin. And then the petitioner, Emily Bergkamp, represented by Mr. Huxford. Those parties come forward. Now, is there anyone on Zoom for this case or is everyone in person?
Good morning, Your Honor, Mr. Laughlin. I believe everybody's in person.
Okay.
No,
right.
Judge, we are here, not in person. We are on Zoom. Thank you so much for asking about us. Chuck, I'm so glad to hear that you're doing a bit better. We are sending positive vibes. Your wife popped in and let us know, and we were all sending you positive vibes. We're here for you. What do they need you to do? Tell us the rules. Tell us the rules, Chuck. Tell us the rules. We'll figure it out. No, seriously, I hope you're doing well. So this is a pro tem judge, which means she's been brought in. Well, usually that means they're just like temporary and not elected. But in this case, I think it's both. She's a pro tem and been brought in because the last judge, if I recall correctly, we got through part of this case, and then it turns out that one of the people works with the old judge's daughter-in-law or something like that at a bus company. I don't know. I've worked at many bus companies, so just one of my many jobs. I've had them all. Okay, let's go.
So I will start with the petitioner. Well, let's start with introductions. Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
Justin Huxford on behalf of Emily Bergkamp. Ms. Bergkamp is present. There's been a fairly extensive record put before the court already.
Oh God,
with
Chuck, this is terrible. No greens, no garlic, no coffee. Well, I would die. That's pretty much my diet. Oh, geez. Okay, we'll have to look at. I don't know if bacon's on the list, Kate Crimson. This is not a time for bacon. Or maybe it is. Hopefully it is.
respect to the declaration and substantive response from the declarant, I do know that Ms. Bergkamp would like to offer some oral testimony to substantiate and support her written declaration and petition.
All right, let me just pull up some of those materials and go ahead, introductions of the respondent.
Morning, Your Honor. Luke Laughlin on behalf of Mr. Kohler. We will not have any additional witnesses. We did file some declarations. I do recall, I believe you said Mr. Bergkamp wants to testify.
He's here as well. He may offer testimony at the court's discretion, depending on whether or not the court feels it's necessary.
And I would just object to that. I read his declaration. I don't think that he has any direct knowledge, personal knowledge.
All
from
right,
which to
well, we will
testify.
get there shortly. And did I call you Jason? Or did not, by mistake?
No.
I
Okay,
don't believe so, Your Honor.
I don't know why I thought I did. All right. Okay, so looks like that we had,
Honestly, that's probably my fault for interrupting her earlier. She was on a roll and then I interrupted her. But yes, Judge, go ahead. Call the case, please.
the original petitions, we had a temporary order. I believe the temporary order was reissued once. And we are here now on a permanent order. Is that all correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so I will go ahead and hear from you. If you have additional testimony, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I swear.
Okay. All right, what else would you like the court to know? Try to stick to things that maybe haven't already been presented in writing. So like new information, additional information, any concerns you have for your safety or active threats that you feel you need the court to be aware of before making a decision.
So I think one piece that I would like to share is just briefly, my family and I,
What's going on? Hold on. Does she have an attorney and did he just run away? Does she have an attorney and did he just run away? Is my question. We don't normally. Is this the attorney? Am I stupid? Maybe I'm stupid and this is the attorney. Who knows? Okay.
there were keys with my name and my home address spread all over Thurston County for the duration of a couple months back in 2023 from March to May. And around that time, Mr. Kohler was
Yay. Okay, he's back, Tammy. Just like you. Yay. Replay crew, hope you and yours are doing well too. I'm confused. Why is she talking? Why isn't the attorney talking? Everything's weird here. This is weird.
making very negative and hateful comments about me on social media. He was also engaged in making many public records requests to the agency I work for, Intercity Transit, mostly about me and my work activities, but also related to a decision that I was a part of that ended his employment with Intercity Transit. So when I reported the key situation to the police, initially we weren't really sure what was going on. But as soon as we got 2, 3, 4 keys with my name and home address on them, we knew someone was doing this nefariously. The police asked me when I called them if I knew of anybody or would I suspect anyone would be doing this. And I said, there is a disgruntled former employee who is actively making negative comments about me on social media. And so after I worked with them for a few days, they also saw some of the information that he was posting on Facebook. And one of the police officers I was working with, Amy King, who's no longer there, but she mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, that while we don't have proof it's David Kolar, we all believe it's him due to the circumstances.
Hearsay.
So I asked them what my recourse was, and she suggested I pursue a protection order, which I waited on. I take these allegations very seriously. And then in November of 2023, I was made aware of someone who's connected on social media with David Kolar, that he had made a post referring to me by my initials. And it basically was stating that threatening someone else named Amanda, that you should have learned what happened to EB. You fuck with my family, you know, it's game on. The person who sent that information to me, I know her. Her name is Amanda. In his declaration, Mr. Kolar states that he doesn't remember what that post was about and that he was referring to his stepdaughter, who also has the same initials, EB. However, if you look in the comments of that Facebook post, which is in Exhibit A of my petition, it clearly says that exactly what he's talking about. He refers to this person as a POS, 3 separate attacks on school grounds. I let the first 2 go, but now it's game on. And then he further comments, she's an angry elf trying to live through her daughter and just a POS all around. To me, that sounds like he's referencing a very specific situation. And I just find it hard to believe that the emotional context of that post does not seem to make sense with referring to his stepdaughter's initials as EB. I clearly state that, you know, this is a braggadocious way of referencing me and what he did to me and my family with.
Vivian, you're excused for being late. This woman just said braggadocious. Okay, wow. For some reason, she has everybody under this spell. She's on a long narrative. She's not being questioned, even though she has an attorney. The judge hasn't even said a word. And I shit you not, she just said braggadocious. Wow. Things I did not think I would hear today in TPO court.
The key harassment, and now he's threatening to do it to someone else. And that's when I felt like I had the responsibility that this was evidence where it clearly states me by my initials. And that's why I felt like I had enough information to file a protection order.
All right. Is there anything else that you want me to know?
I would say that the protection order, temporary order, has been in place since April, late April of this year.
Oh my gosh, she already
Mr.
got
Kolar
it.
has not made one negative comment about me on Facebook during that time or on any social media. Before that, he was consistently doing so. He would take a few months off here and there, but he would consistently do so. And so I find it very interesting that this time the temporary protection order has been in place. It's been very quiet. I haven't had to worry about that. Again, it's his right to make those comments on social media, but it's the chronicity of him making the comments around the time that the keys started appearing in the community.
Hold on, did she just say chronicity? Vince, late, that's okay. Writing it down. Bad Scooter's here, that's okay. I'm not shitting you. Is she shitting us? Did she see, what did she just say?
Again, it's his right to make those comments on social media, but it's the chronicity of him making the comments around the time.
Chronicity, like synchronicity, but chronicity. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. I bet it's right. They seem to be right at this rate. It's a fucking bold move. Jesus Christ. Hi, Erica. You guys aren't really that late. We're only 14 minutes in. Chronicity. And there's another Erica with a C. Yeah, related via time, but does chronicity really mean anything in fucking court? These are the questions we actually have now, isn't it? Isn't it?
And that the keys started appearing in the community that is very compelling to me personally. And I can't understate the terrorizing nature this had on me and my family. We had strangers coming to our door all time of day and night. We never knew how they were going to respond. It also said there was a $500 reward on the keys. So my children were outside playing basketball. Oftentimes strangers would approach. We lived in our house with all the blinds drawn, the doors locked. We told the kids to stay upstairs, to never answer the door. My elderly mother lived in our neighborhood. I was also concerned about her safety. And while, all of this was happening, he was consistently making just negative remarks about me on social media, making public records requests. And I have never once made any negative comments about Mr. Kolar anywhere. And I just find it hard to believe that that he is not responsible for the harassment my family and I endured.
Did you, while any of this was going on, have you been to therapy? Did you have to take medication? How did this impact your everyday living?
This impacted my everyday living because we were essentially just prisoners in our own home. I did increase my anti-anxiety medication around this time as well. When I hear a noise at night, I think it's Mr. Kolar coming to my house because I am very afraid of him retaliating against me because I've even gone this far. And even though it may be his freedom of speech, I guarantee you that after this is over, if I am not provided a protection order, he will start his defamatory comments about me on social media again. I'm 100% sure of that. And I think the hardest part for me was seeing what my kids went through, my two boys. My oldest son actually offered to say, hey, Mom, if you know who this is, can I reach out to them and just ask them to stop?
How old are your kids?
My oldest son just turned 17 and my youngest is 14.
And the relationship between you and Mr. Kolar is purely an ex-employee-employer relationship. There's
That's
nothing
correct.
more to it than that.
No.
And were you a supervisor?
I was
His direct supervisor?
for a short period of time, yes.
Okay. And then can you tell the court like what happened in that work relationship, how that ended?
Sure. Well, essentially the work relationship, the way it ended was that Mr. Kolar took time off for some medical related absences. It's my understanding that he had needs for some surgeries. Around that same time, Intercity Transit had made a vaccine mandate. This was during the heart of COVID. Had made a vaccine mandate. And it's my understanding Mr. Kolar chose not to get vaccinated, but he did take his medical leave of absence. And when that was over, we require that there's return to work paperwork that is submitted by every employee. It's a standard practice. And Mr. Kolar submitted incomplete paperwork. And so we ended his employment. He was not maliciously terminated. It was simply because he didn't provide the information that we needed to make sure he could return to work safely. Secondary to that, I'm not sure if he was vaccinated at that point in time, but that would have been another requirement of his return at that point in time too.
Okay. And is that the time that this started?
So he was let go in October, I believe, of 2022. In December of 2022, the public records request started, as well as negative comments on Facebook. And then also in early March, when I was named interim general manager of Intercity Transit, he made very clear negative remarks about me on articles in the Olympian. He's referred to me negatively by my titles. And so to me, the timing and the chronicity of everything, and then followed up by the statement he made this last November.
All right. If I forgot, is it Mr.
Huxford, thank you.
No, your witness. Sorry, Mr. Huxford.
Mr. Bergkamp is with us as
What
well.
can you just tell me what additional information he
I
might?
think mostly to substantiate just the impact on the family.
First of all, this is fucking weird. This has been a weird hearing. I need some crackers. I'm gonna go get some crackers and some juice. I'm like a fucking toddler. I want some Ritz crackers and some apple juice, please. Oh wait, there's nobody here. I gotta get it myself.
He was present for many of the keys arriving in the house, answered messages, telephone numbers, or telephone calls rather, visits directly to the house from people trying to return these keys to the family home.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, I think that's covered in his declaration quite specifically. So if you'd like to hear from him,
Okay, the only part I would like to hear about is the impact on the family.
certainly.
So if, sir, we come forward, please. I wanted to just give you before I swear you in, I don't want you to repeat a bunch of things that have already been presented to the court, but I do want to hear specifically if this situation has impacted you personally and how it's impacted your family, if it has. So raise your right hand, swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, absolutely. It's affected us in profound ways. For me, watching my family, my wife and my children suffer, knowing who did it and how this is happening, really the diabolical method in which it occurred, in which I believe we are not the only victims of this harassment, but you had numerous folks who are homeless, who are in desperate need of money. They came to our home expecting something. And it was quite an incredible setup to produce really profound disappointment and anger. Some folks would arrive 2, 3, and 4 in a car when they understood that this was a hoax, this was harassment, this was, I don't know what other word you want to call this, but they were really angry. And so I had very angry, sometimes intoxicated people on my porch, on my property, day and night, constantly. We did not know when this was going to end. We had no clear recourse, and there is no way that this behavior or harassment was deserved by us. I know Mr. Kolar in no particular way, shape, or form.
Right. So specifically having that happen, like having the people come to your house, having them be intoxicated, it impacted you in what ways? Like what actually changed in your life as far as, did you go to the doctor? Did you get any medication? Did you do therapy? Did you do anything to protect your family? Like, how did your life actually change based on what you were going through?
I understand that I'm a fact witness, but I'm also a clinical psychologist. I watched myself and my family slowly accumulate symptoms that are related directly to trauma.
Okay, so that's what I want to hear. Just tell me what the symptoms are.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
you. So we are hypervigilant, anxious all the time, pretty much flat and sometimes depressed. We changed our plans. We changed our life. Our boys had activities for school. We had activities for personal life. We had friends coming over. We have family close by. My mother-in-law lives just a couple doors down. My parents live just 5 minutes away. And we were in a state of terror. We did not know where the next threat was coming from or how it was going to find us.
All right. Thank you. All right. So at this time, I will ask you if you would like to present any evidence or if you would like to have anyone testify. I know you said you originally did not want to produce any additional evidence. I don't know if you.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you.
Not via Zoom. You asked if there were witnesses. via Zoom.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I would like the opportunity to do a brief cross-examination of both the petitioner and
Okay.
her husband.
All right.
And then I would like testimony from. my
Okay.
client.
All right. So you're still under oath. And so defense counsel is Respondent's counsel is going to ask you some questions.
Ms. Bergkamp, I understand that you believe that it's my client that it made some keys and passed them around to people in the community, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you haven't seen my client actually in the flesh in close to 3 to 4 years, correct?
That's correct.
If there were any threats directly issued at you, any threats of violence whatsoever, that you've endured by my client directed at you, they'd be in the evidence you presented.
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Bergkamp, the key incident, I know you referenced it as happening in April, I think you said March and April. You're referring to 2023, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that was approximately a year and a half ago, give or take, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In your declaration, you wrote that you reported it to law enforcement, correct?
That's correct.
And that law enforcement investigated it, correct?
Yes.
And that they determined that they could not determine who did it, correct?
Except for the statement that made by Lieutenant King, which I've already referenced, that while they didn't have proof, they believe it was David Kolar due to the circumstances.
Okay. And they did not charge Mr. Kolar with any incident, did they?
They did not.
Okay. And Officer Watkins was the officer in charge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you stayed in close contact with him about the case?
Yes,
And he did not, and he called Mr. Kolar, correct?
he did.
And Mr. Kolar voluntarily spoke with him, correct?
Correct.
And after that,
Katie9, she's sounding a little bit paranoid. Something's going on, but his lawyer is making a pretty good case right now and being very calm about it.
discussion, Officer Watkins closed the case, correct?
I'm not aware of that. He didn't communicate that to me.
In your declaration, you wrote that you were reasonably certain. You used the words reasonably certain that Mr. Kolar was responsible for the key incident, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
And that was known to you. That was your belief since the key incident began in spring of 2023, correct?
Can you repeat that question?
That was your belief since the spring of 2023, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But you didn't apply for a protection order until a year and a half later, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Kolar had been terminated from his employment many months before the key incident began, correct?
It was October of 2022. The key harassment started in March of 2023.
So 9 or so months, correct?
That's less than 9 months, I believe.
So it's fair to say that you believe he's the most likely individual, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but you're not certain, correct?
I don't have an image of David Kolar making keys in his house.
That would be creepy.
Um,
Thanks for
Your
watching.
work
It was so
building,
fun.
you had referenced in your declaration that you believe that Mr. Kolar was going to your work building. Was there any witness of this, him coming to see you at your work building?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I recall reading in your declaration, or one of your statements, that you believe that he had gone to your work building at some point. I believe it's to pay for public records.
There was a statement in Mr. Kolar's declaration that I have no idea what he's referencing. I'd never called law enforcement to state that he was coming to my home or my work address during the time that the temporary protection order was in place. I don't know what that's referencing.
Okay, well, I recall reading, and it's quite lengthy, so I don't have it pinpointed, unfortunately, but I recall reading something along the lines of he would have had to go to your work building to pay for public records.
That is correct. And we have been complying with Mr. Kolar's public records requests in a very efficient manner.
Okay. are you aware that he actually never went to the work building to pay for public records? It was a different building.
I am aware he went to the transit center downtown, yes, to
The
pay for
reason I-
public records.
okay.
That's what we ask everyone to do.
Okay, the reason I ask is you presented that in your declaration as him attempting to contact you. Did you ever try to have your work building collect the camera footage from the videos outside of it?
No.
Okay. Did you ever, do you have a camera outside of your house?
Yes, in fact, we did have to increase the number of cameras that we have security wise after the keys started showing up. We incurred extra cost as a family to do that so that we could see when people were approaching our driveway.
Okay. And did you ever once see Mr. Kohler arrive at your house?
That information is in the declaration. No,
No. Do you believe Mr. Kohler has a legal right to do public records requests?
absolutely.
Okay. And those public records requests, you didn't provide any proof of them in here, but you indicated that they were directed at you, correct?
There were many directed at me. There were many not directed at me. There were others directed at just the agency in general.
Okay, so that was left out of your petition, which is that he actually did many public records requests and they weren't just about you. They were about his termination, which involved you. Correct?
That's correct. And considering the chronicity of all of his negative comments about me on social media, those were of particular concern to me as well, because they bolstered the fact that he was doing this around the time the keys started happening.
Do you recall reading in Officer Watkins' report reference of somebody named Stewart who had texted you a picture of a dartboard, a target?
Yes, so I actually made Officer Watkins aware of that. He called that phone number. It was an adolescent who had no idea what was going on. And I never once received another text message from that number. However, the negative comments that David Kolar was making about me on social media and also his public records requests continued throughout that time.
So I read everything that you filed, and I understand you say that all of this stuff is attributed to Mr. Kohler, but I am not seeing, I've read through everything that you filed, and I am not seeing anything that specifically is a threat or even specifically mentions you. Is there anything that I'm missing here? You're just coming to the conclusion that Mr. Kohler is making what you call threats towards you, correct? But they're not actually, you can't show that anything that he's ever written is about you.
That's not what I'm claiming. I'm claiming that he pursued this course of harassment through a means that it would be very difficult for anyone to identify who this might actually be.
MB, this case is a fucking doozy already. The lady right there is a general manager for a transit company. The person she claims is harassing her is a former employee who was fired in the post-COVID vaccine requirement time. And she alleges that he's been harassing her since. His lawyer is doing a very good job of taking apart her testimony. Her lawyer has done nothing. He literally didn't even ask her any questions. He just let her talk. I was shocked. The judge is obsessed with what medications people are on, basically the only question she's asking. And yeah, that's where we're at. So yeah. Oh, and I just had some Ritz crackers and apple juice, and my toddler brain is a little bit satiated.
But through all of the circumstantial evidence that I have, that I know I have the right to share in this courtroom, it clearly makes points that the chronicity of the keys and Mr. Kolar's behavior.
Oh, and also chronicity. She continues to say this word. She also said braggadocious, but she's only said that once. She has said chronicity so no beer. It is in a beer cup, but it is apple juice. I never drank beer. I've never even drank a full beer in my entire life. I've often been given beers, and then I'm like, I don't want to drink this. Always Coca-Cola if I can. Apple juice is like low on the list, but it's what's in the fridge.
On social media lines up with him being the individual who I believe is responsible.
You supervise over 300 employees, correct?
Yes.
A number of them were let go during the COVID epidemic, correct?
Actually, there were not as many as Mr. Kolar stated in his declaration. We had many people resign before the a vaccine mandate went into place. And many of those folks I provided letters of reference for so they could find employment elsewhere. There were truly only about 5 people who were let go because they chose not to get vaccinated.
Were you aware that there's numerous disgruntled people who were felt compelled to resign or were terminated as a result of the decision of your agency during COVID?
So that is something people don't necessarily tell me about. However, I have never once heard from any of those individuals on social media. They've never once made a negative comment about me. So I find it interesting that that they have not done that. In fact, I've not been contacted by any of those individuals afterwards. But Mr. Kolar continues and probably would, if this is not granted, make negative comments about me and my place of employment.
Mr. Kolar has a right to criticize public officials.
Yes,
And Mr. Kolar has never stepped over the line and made any threat towards you personally, correct?
correct. Personally, no. And I'm not taking offense to his making comments about me on, it's his freedom of speech right to do that. It's the chronicity of those comments and his behavior that I am pointing to.
Well, the chronicity is this was a year and a half ago, and you filed for a protection order a few months ago.
It's infecting
Isn't it
everybody.
true?
Everybody's saying chronicity. Chronicity, Mike. The chronicity of you showing up. Aligned with the chronicity of this fucking video. Suspect. Highly suspect.
That Mr. Kolar had indicated on social media that he planned to go to a board meeting for intercity transit in, I believe it was late February.
That's
And
correct.
right after that, to voice his concerns about how the agency operates. And right after that is when you sought the protection order. Isn't that true?
I have already stated that I initially did not seek a protection order because I was afraid of Mr. Kolar retaliating against me, and that remains true. The timing of when I put in for that is actually just an indication of the fear that I have.
You had law enforcement involved with you at that time. You had numerous officers involved, and you're saying you're more afraid after nothing happened for a year and a half than you're more afraid now?
That's correct, because they couldn't do anything, and they had many other pressing issues to attend to out in the public. Mine was not something that was taking priority.
Because they didn't have any proof.
That's true, and because they yet still advised me to seek a protection order, including the
Advised you
last.
that was an option, correct?
That's correct, yes.
The only thing that's happened since the key incident a year and a half ago was that you impart to Mr. Kolar is a Facebook post in November, which is like 4 to 5 months before you filed the petition.
That's correct.
And you reference that Facebook post, and you said, and it says, it references someone you believe is, I believe you're a coworker, correct?
No, it's someone I know. It's an
Someone,
acquaintance.
okay, an acquaintance. And you have determined that the initials EB stand for you, correct?
Yes,
But you're aware now that Mr. Kolar's daughter is actually EB, correct?
I am aware that her initials are EB, yes.
And you're also aware that the person that he was making that comment about had falsely accused, had some incidents with his minor children at the school, in which they were falsely accused of something and had voiced concerns about racism, correct?
I only know what Mr. Kolar put in his declaration.
Do you think it's a little bit of a leap to just assume that that's you after a year and a half of hearing nothing?
If you had been through what my family and I had endured for months,
Please just answer the
4
question.
months,
Yes or no?
I would
Please answer the
suggest
question.
that, can you repeat the question?
I'll just move on.
I'll just move on like this. Take this tiny little
Ms. Bergkamp,
What?
are you aware that my client actually has a tremendous amount of sympathy for what your family's gone through? Are you aware of that?
I would not be, because he's never once expressed concern for me or my family. He's only expressed criticism of me on social media.
You, in your petition, you indicated that the reason you think it's my client is because the Star of David, and his first name is David, was on the keychains for the keys.
That was on the keychains of the keys, yes. And initially, I felt that it might have been some anti-Semitic issues. However, I have learned recently in the last month that the Star of David was actually used by individuals who were choosing not to get vaccinated as a way to protest the vaccine mandate. There was a Washington State lawmaker, you can Google Washington State.
Move to strike, please.
Oh God, please move to strike. Please, why are you guys doing this to me? This is a hot potato. If I ever had one, but you know me, I love me a fucking potato. As long as there's sour cream.
Please just answer the question. It's a yes or no question.
And sorry, what was the question again?
We'll move on. I would just ask, just answer yes or no to my questions, please.
Also, Mr. Loughlin, just if you can keep your questions to her testimony. I mean, we're going far afield.
I'm trying not to, Your Honor, but
Well, I mean, and I just would like you to be succinct and maybe make shorter questions. I mean, they are kind of long and it's hard for the witness to answer the questions. So go ahead.
noted, Your Honor.
Yams, yum.
Ms. Bergkamp, I think what I'm getting at is, this incident, nobody's denying that this happened to you. Nobody's denying that. But it does appear to be quite a stretch from.
Okay, so again, you're not asking a
I'm
question.
getting to my question.
I know, but that's the problem. So you're prefacing your question with testimony and argument,
that's
and that's confusing
cross-examination.
the witness. And I know it's cross-examination, but you're not asking the question, right? So you're saying, you're prefacing it with a lot of facts, and then by the time you ask her a question,
And Julie, I tone it down. What is going on here? This is a crazy case.
she's not sure what you're asking. So I'm just asking you to cross-examine in a way that the witness can understand and answer the question.
Ms. Bergkamp, everything that you wrote is a statement under oath, correct?
Correct.
And you stated under oath that you never stated that you knew that you had definitive proof that Mr. Kohler was responsible, yes or no?
Yes,
Yes, you have definitive proof that Mr. Kohler is responsible. Is that what you're saying now?
I did not know. I did not have definitive proof.
Okay, no more questions.
Okay. And do you have any questions of the other witness?
You just won. Yeah.
Okay. Can you just come forward, sir? All right, sir, you're still under oath.
Mr. Bergkamp, I read your declaration. I understand that your family went through a lot. But I want to direct your attention to two words that you used in your declaration. You said, "I'm reasonably certain that Mr. Kohler is responsible." If you are reasonably certain that Mr. Kohler was responsible, why wouldn't you have, let me just rephrase. You did not apply for a protection order at any point over a year and a half, long past the date of this incident against Mr. Kohler. If you were reasonably certain, wouldn't you not have applied for a protection order much earlier?
No. The reason that I didn't apply for a protection order is because I am in full support of my wife and spouse. I honor her process and her decision. I stand next to her in that process. The nature of trauma and fear in our family was so confusing and
And I just object, Your Honor, it's going far beyond this. It was a yes or no question.
It's fine. You don't have to finish that. I understand the answer to the question. And you have another question?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. All right. I'll hear a brief argument.
And Your Honor, I do want.
Oh,
my
that's right.
client-
You want your client to testify. I am sorry. Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're going to ask questions or do you want him to make a statement?
I'm going to ask.
Okay.
questions.
How are you doing, Joseph? Did you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? This judge does a short version. Truth, whole truth, go. Truth, whole truth, go.
Mr. Kohler, please state and spell your name for the record.
David Kohler, Kolar.
Mr. Kohler, I want to direct your attention to the declaration that you filed. This all a statement you made under oath.
Yes.
In it, you'd mentioned that you're a prior employee at Intercity Transit.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me very briefly, were you on protected leave when you were terminated?
I'm getting that vibe.
I had received notification to require the vaccine by a certain date, or termination would be of October 15th, 2021. I had put surgeries off prior to that. My direct supervisor had to have surgery. We had a lot of transition. So I had talked to my HR director and I said, I put my stuff off for you guys. Sorry.
Just to keep it succinct,
Sorry.
you
So-
were terminated when you were on protected leave, correct?
After.
Okay.
So I went on FMLA, had gone and had shoulder surgery, both my wrists done, scheduled to get my other shoulder done. I had returned a doctor's note and it was incomplete. I did not know this. I had given the note a week prior to my administrative hearing. They said if I had the hearing or if I had a note, I wouldn't have to do the hearing. So I didn't show up. That afternoon, I got a termination letter from Ms. Bergkamp stating that I didn't show proof of vaccination and my doctor's note was incomplete. And my doctor had missed signing the bottom. My doctor had asked, hey, can I change this? Like that was my mistake. But the company had known a week that the note was incomplete, where they could have said, hey,
We'll
Sorry.
just to keep things moving along, because I know these are expedited proceedings.
sorry.
Do you believe that you have a potential employment lawsuit against the
Yes.
Intercity Transit?
Yes,
And you've been vocal about that with your friends and colleagues, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Well, until I've gotten public records and proof of certain things, yes.
And in the course of your doing public records, have you done many public records requests?
Many,
Okay,
over 150.
Hi,
over
Paul.
150. And those were those all directed at Ms. Bergkamp?
No,
Were any of them involving Ms. Bergkamp?
yes.
Who were they also? Who did they also involve?
There was a lot of unethical and some illegal stuff that had gone on, that things that I had known prior to losing employment. Some things were I had answers already to, but I wanted proof from them in their words. They said no exemptions were made and they had given exemptions
You're referring to the,
to vaccine mandate.
okay,
So there was, I was working from home for 2 years before terminated, but they said they couldn't accommodate me. So there, there was a lot of, I don't have the funds, I lost my job. So I threw out a bunch of public records. a lot of them were just to be able to give to an attorney and say, what can you use? What can't you use? Like, I can use, I can throw away, whatever.
So the point of it was to prepare for potential employment discrimination lawsuit, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that happened to involve Ms. Burke. Did you also have other people involved in your termination decision?
Yes, Anne Freeman Manzanares was the current GM at the time. And Heather Stafford, our HR director, it was their 3 decisions.
Okay. And to your knowledge, have either of those 2 other people who were equally involved in your termination decision had any complaints of harassment that you know about?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. When did you first learn about this whole Keith incident?
I actually remember it, I don't know why perfectly, because I was heading up to Spanaway. I was on Shinky Road and I get a phone call, and I usually don't answer numbers I don't recognize. But I saw a restricted number, I answered it, and the gentleman said, is this David Cole? And I said, yes. And he said, this is Officer Watkins. And I was like, okay. And he asked me if I knew Emily Burkamp, and I stated yes, and what my relationship was. And he asked me if I had heard or had any knowledge of, and I said no.
Knowledge about the Key incident.
Knowledge about the Key incident. And we probably had maybe a 5-minute conversation. And
did he ask you follow-up questions?
He just asked me, he said, I don't know if it's you or not, but if it is, would you please stop? And I was like, absolutely. I said, I don't know who it is. I said, there's a lot of angry people, there's some of the public records requests that I have filed are for current employees. And those employees, obviously, in fear of retaliation, can't make those public records themselves. So probably about 15 of those public records are employees reaching out to me because they've seen my post.
Okay, so what you're referring to is other disgruntled employees who are upset about the vaccine mandate.
Yes.
And who potentially some current employees who did get the vaccine over their objections.
Yes.
And so you informed Officer Watkins, hey, there's a number of disgruntled people here.
Current and former.
Okay.
Yes.
To your knowledge, did Officer Watkins ask for any names, or did he do any follow-up?
No, he just basically said, okay, well, if it is you, will you just please stop? And I was like, sure. I mean, he asked me that like 3 times. So okay. I was just like, okay,
Yeah.
And that was it.
Okay. Are you responsible for the Key incident?
No.
Do you feel compassion towards her and her family for what they went through?
When I first heard about it, it's not gonna sound good, but I kind of chuckled that it was a funny joke. When I found out the extensivity of it and what they were going through, then I did feel that compassion. It was like, I couldn't imagine, because I've got 2 16-year-old girls at the home, and if that was happening at my house,
yeah,
with my girlfriend and her mother, my mother-in-law living with us.
Okay. And did law enforcement advise you that they felt that you were responsible and they were going to charge you with a crime?
Nothing was ever said like that.
In your declaration, you mentioned looking up the incident after talking with the officer and seeing the King 5 news clip. And at the time, you still didn't really understand what it was about, correct?
No, I watched somebody had posted the clip on Facebook, and that's when I clicked on the link to watch it, and it was the King 5 story about it.
Okay. And last February, last February, you had indicated on a social media post that you were on a maybe it was the Olympian, that you had planned to attend an intercity transit board meeting. Can you
Yes.
explain a little bit about that? Why were you going to attend?
Well, I had asked prior to that on, I don't know if it was, I think it was Intercity Transit's Facebook. I asked them, I said, when are you gonna open up to public board meetings? I said, COVID's over. Why are you still doing online? And then I believe it was February, I saw the post where they said, we're gonna start doing in person, which had been over a year since COVID mandate, everything was over. So I said, great, because I wanted to talk to the board in person with the evidence that I had found about some very unethical practices. And I wanted to talk to them and ask them what was done about this, what's gonna be done.
Okay.
And shortly after that is when I got a knock on the door from an officer serving me with papers.
Okay. So,
Mr. McLaughlin, it's been 45 minutes. I'm just making everyone aware of the time. So we have cross-examine, the rest of your direct cross-examination and then closing arguments, which we may not have time for. So if it's something that was already covered in the evidence, let's
sure.
not go over it again.
I'll wrap it up in the
Okay.
next 5 minutes, Your Honor. And I appreciate your grace with time. Mr. Kohler, there's been a lot of allegations with not any direct proof that you're responsible for this key incident. How does that make you feel?
I honestly have just, it's been hard because a lot of the people that I was friends with, we're not friends anymore. There's been lots of accusations, a lot of support from Mrs. Burkamp. And I feel like it's a one-sided street because I don't have a chance to defend myself. So it's been hard. Like, I kind of test the waters. If I see somebody, I run into somebody, if they have a smile and they're excited to see me, great. If they kind of give me that look, I just avoid and go elsewhere.
Okay. Have you just been avoiding your normal friends and places that you go?
Not my normal friends, but former coworkers. You know, there's a lot I still talk to, but there's a lot I don't.
Okay. Ms. Burkamp mentioned that her proof that you did this was that it had a Star of David, which would appear to me to be motivated by anti-Semitism. What's your religious and cultural background?
I mean, I'm a Christian, you know, I go to church every Sunday, very involved with the church, but my grandpa is part Jewish, Czech, Jewish.
Would you ever issue an anti-Semitic threat?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing ever in my posts from previous or even work related that has ever been racist or sexist or.
Okay. The other point of proof that she offers is this Facebook post from November 29th, 2023. Can you exhibit A? Can you tell the court what that was about?
So at my girlfriend back here.
Whoa, humble brag that you have a girlfriend. So a lot of people in the chat asking about the key incident. So what happened was she alleges that around town, keys began showing up that had a label on it that gave her address, I guess, and phone number, and said there was a reward if returned. And so she alleges that homeless people and vagrants began to show up at her property with these keys. And she alleges that he created these keys and distributed them. He denies that. I don't think she has any evidence about it. And Yeah, but I'm having a very bad feeling about this judge. Very bad feeling about the judge right now.
Her daughters, they're mixed race. They had a lot of issues going on at Reeves. Teachers basically telling them they should be guilty, feel guilty for the white side of them. I had a very extensive conversation with the superintendent and principal. Teachers were reprimanded. Amanda knew about this because her husband is a direct employee of Mrs. Bergkamp.
Who is Amanda?
No, like
Amanda,
apparently there were physical keys dropped off, Julie, that doxed them. Also, what the fuck is he talking about? Why this is gonna be a tough one to go through. Oh dear.
crass. Amanda, because of what I've been accused of, Amanda's been taking it out on my daughter, my girlfriend's daughter. So she has attacked my child 3 times on public grounds.
So let me,
Yelled at her.
okay, and go
So-
ahead. So you can finish.
So that night, I finally said, I made a post already, and then Aaron's like, don't use my name, please. So
That's your daughter,
yeah,
Erin.
because she was afraid. She's like, please don't post anything. And I told her, I go, Erin, if I don't say anything, I said, this is going to continue. So she's like, okay. So I made the post, and everything, if you look in here, it's talking about Amanda.
Yeah.
Because she was targeting and attacking my child.
And Amanda is a friend of Miss Bergkamp. correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's her. At the time, Emily was the operations director. Cameron, Amanda's husband, was the fixed route manager. And so, like, Amanda thinking that's her, I felt like, well, obviously you're acknowledging that you were harassing my child, but
I want to, just for interest
Sorry.
of brevity, do you have any criminal history?
0.
What are your, I believe you were running for office shortly after you left for county assessor.
Yes.
Would you ever do anything like issue keys?
No.
Would you ever do anything like this when
I
you?
mean,
were running
I'm
for
very
public
involved in the community, and I don't know if I'll ever run for office again, but I'm very involved with, I'm helping Dave Reichert, and, I do stuff with the Republican Party and stuff like that, but I don't know if it's to slander my name for future references. I don't know if it's to keep me away from going to board meetings. I don't know.
or defend against employment discrimination lawsuit.
Yes, or that too. Yeah, make me look.
Have you ever threatened any violence towards, have you ever threatened at anything? towards Miss
0.
Bergkamp? When's the last time you saw her?
I would guess at least 3 to 4 years ago.
Okay,
It'd probably been at least a year, probably before I was even terminated,
okay,
because most of our conversations were Zoom or team meetings.
okay. Have you ever indicated to anybody else that you guys have in common, any ex-coworkers, anything that you have wish ill harm
No,
to Miss Bergkamp?
0.
2 more questions, Mr. Laughlin.
Okay, thank you. Your children go to school together, correct?
Yes,
Have you ever approached Miss Bergkamp?
never seen her there
Okay.
or her children.
All right, that's 2 questions. Do you have any questions? You're still under oath, sir.
Mr. Kolar, you testified that you are very active in the community. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, sir.
By active in the community, do you mean posting negative and salacious and defamatory comments on Facebook about things that you're involved in the community?
The negative comments and posts on Facebook about your client has been after I've received public records confirming. I would never say anything without having proof.
And you mentioned earlier, testified that you've made over 150 public records requests, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that it is your right to do so?
Yes,
to
sir.
Access that information. At what point in the aggregate in a 18-month period does 150 public records requests become abusive process?
Objection.
I paid for-
Sustained.
You don't have to
Oh,
answer.
sorry.
So your explanation for the November 29th post is that you were speaking of your daughter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I'm just gonna quote this in full. It amazes me when a racist fat mom tries to bully my kid, then threatens her at a school function. You think that shit's gonna fly with me? Should have learned from EB, your daughter. You fuck with my family, it's game on, Amanda. What should Amanda have learned from your daughter? Like, I don't follow what your intention was. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Because I went straight to the superintendent and the principal, and both the teachers were reprimanded. And it was immediately stopped at Reeves from talking about that kind of talk. Amanda knew about this. And so for me, if you don't stop going after my child in school, I will go to the school and I will have, essentially was to say, I'll get you in trouble with the, like, I'm not afraid to go to school and talk to them about what you're doing. I have 5 girls as a witness of what Amanda was doing.
Do you routinely post about other people with such derogatory and vulgar language on the internet?
Unfortunately, I do often speak I speak in a vulgar manner, but Julie comes along, classing the place up, giving the gifts out. Thank you so much, Julie. You're amazing. You rock. Here's the deal. The judge looks visibly upset right now. She's about as good at hiding her face as I am. Thank you so much, Julie. This is really a weird case, I would say. And what else I would say is, seriously, the judge looks less than enthused. Vulgarity. There it is. Vulgarity. Vulgarity. That's our Paisley. Vulgarity.
Not usually, no. This time, like I said, it was the 3rd time, and Amanda walked up to my child at an award ceremony and looked right at her in front of 4 friends and said, "And I'll do it again, try me." So that to me was a threat. And when I heard that, that's when I made the post. And then I deleted that post, and then I made that one.
I mean, would you concede that some people would interpret such language, strong language, as threatening or intimidating?
Sustain.
On March 2nd, in 2023, you called my client a fraud in chief in a comment, I'm assuming, for an article in the Olympian. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a post, it looks like, from March 23rd, 2023, and it says, "I find it so comical when somebody F's with the family of their money and then plays the victim card." What did you mean by that, Mr. Kohler?
Honestly, that was probably about the key incident, because I figured it was a disgruntled employee. You fire somebody, I mean, I was there. I know what the ramifications of losing an income, especially a good income and benefits are.
So, but you just testified a short time ago that, once you found out the seriousness of it, that, you experienced compassion for my client.
Objection. It's a little bit of mischaracterization.
What's wrong? So that post specifically was about being contacted by law enforcement regarding the key incident.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and you.
I mean, it's
essentially.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. And essentially, you're, I guess, saying that my client is playing a victim when she isn't a victim of a crime.
Objection. That's not what he's saying.
Objection. 16 days after your birthday and 2 before mine. March babies we are, baby. Check mark boy in the flesh. Well, I can't see the check mark here. Thanks, StreamYard. Hi, Mikey. How are you? This is quite the case, full of a lot of polarizing subjects that we normally do not talk about.
Well, I think it's a
Withdraw.
legitimate question. You might want to rephrase it, but I'm not going to sustain that objection.
And then there's another Facebook comment here. Where you allege that my client paid off an employee who stole money from intercity transit. Is that correct?
Yes,
And that was posted publicly in a Facebook post?
yes.
And then,
I don't remember it, but if it's there, then yes.
okay. And then there's another Facebook post in which you're talking about being forced to get vaccinated. It looks like generally you're just talking about intercity transit, but then you reference later the new GM and interim GM. Who was the new GM and interim GM at the time you posted that?
That was Emily,
Okay.
because she was the interim GM.
You called them crooked and alleged that they had committed fraud or theft
Yes,
in a public forum.
yes,
Okay.
because I have proof of it.
There's another Facebook post here in which you're discussing whether or not
Tell us what you're thinking.
management is actually doing any work. Is
And
that
Your
correct?
Honor, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to object. This is all law.
Everybody knows that
lawful First
management's never doing any work. Come on now. That's just fucking obvious.
Amendment activity. Unless you're,
Your Honor, no more questions.
that can't be subject to an anti-harassment.
Sorry, I just was given a note from the clerk. We do have an 11 o'clock interpreter matter that needs to go at 11 o'clock. So that gives us 8 minutes.
It has to be heard before 11.
Oh, before 11. So we're gonna wrap it up.
I have no further questions. I'm ready to proceed to oral arguments.
Okay, so if it has to go before 11, each side's getting 3 minutes. So it's 10:12. You get till 10:15.
No problem, Your Honor. Thank you.
Or, yeah,
Ultimately, we're asking the court to look at the totality of the circumstances here. All I've heard from Mr. Kolar today is general denials that he is not responsible for these activities. But ultimately, if you look at the nexus of time, the employment relationship that passed, an immediate ramping up of public records requests after being let go, and then we have this key incident that doesn't go on for indefinitely. It's not still going on, but it goes on for a period of 4 to 6 months to the tune of 40 or 50 keys that are returned to my client's home by various members of the community, seeking money, seeking a reward, upsetting the peace and quiet enjoyment of their property and their children and her husband. At the end of the day, there's no smoking gun here. But that said, I find the explanation regarding Mr. Kolar's Facebook post to be nonsensical. I do not believe that he was referencing his daughter, and I don't think the court should believe that he was referencing his daughter. I think he, inadvertently or not, was broadcasting to the community that if you mess with me, I am capable of doing things. What those things are, I have no idea. But ultimately, I think that law enforcement thinks it's him, but there's no substantive evidence to get there. We don't need beyond a reasonable doubt today. We need a preponderance of the evidence.
And to be clear, they were not her keys. They were just keys that somehow had her address or phone number on them. And there was multiple versions distributed throughout the city, or dropped around. But none of them were actual keys to the house. They just directed people to contact them for a reward. It's unique. It's unique. It's not a period fence. If you don't know what that is, that's one of the episodes we did a couple weeks back. I wish I was kidding.
And I think when you look at the nexus of time, the nexus of the employment history between them, the aggregate of public records requests, I will concede to the court that it is Mr. Kolar's right to make those public records requests. 150 or over 150, Mr. Kolar says proudly in an 18-month period. At what point do those public records requests become abuse of process? At what point do they become harassment of his former employer and indirectly Ms. Bergkamp? I'm not sure how many specifically reference her, but it seems like Mr. Kolar in his Facebook post, his posts on public forums at the Olympian, in the community, and he has focused his vitriol for whatever happened with intercity transit, regardless of the circumstances of termination of his employment, on Ms. Bergkamp. And now he is set out on a campaign to try to prove that my client is a thief or fraud, or not qualified for her job, while many of the things he's doing fall squarely within the First Amendment. At what point does this become harassment? At what point is my client allowed to view this course of conduct as intimidation and insinuation and inference of a further threat? I think that the keys coming into play around March of last year, and the aggregate of that, I mean, it's not 2 keys, it's not 5 keys, it's 10 keys, or 50 keys, excuse me.
We're over.
I'll let you go over.
At the end of the day, we're asking the court to approve the protection order. I think it's warranted. Again, I think that the totality of the circumstances speak to the logical conclusion that there is enough circumstantial evidence directed at Mr. Kolar that the court can make this determination based on a preponderance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so 4 minutes.
Your Honor, there's not even circumstantial evidence here. There's pure speculation. The standard of proof is preponderance. We agree to that. The standard of proof for law enforcement is probable cause. There are numerous emails filed by the petitioner which show her trying to get law enforcement to go after my client, essentially, and them telling her, no, they don't have proof. She's drawn your attention to one email after numerous emails to them, in which they said they're not pursuing it. That says from one officer who I think had limited role in the investigation that she might think it's him. That's not enough. We're in a court of law. We require proof. None, and there is I've done a lot of appellate work on these anti-harassment orders. None of the protected First Amendment activities, public records requests, even harsh criticism counts. None of that is harassing activity. The First Amendment provides deep protections to every individual in this country. The timing does not make any sense. That's what I have not been able to wrap my head around throughout this entire case. Why, when law enforcement is repeatedly saying, hey, we don't have any proof here, but you can go get a protection order, why would you wait 1.5 years? Why would you wait until somebody says that they're going to go continue on with their protected First Amendment activity and go to a board meeting to vocalize their criticism of you? Why would you wait? Why wait? If your family is in danger, why wait? There is simply no proof. It's pure speculation. She supervised 300 employees, I think is what she said. A number of them were highly disgruntled. It could be any one of those people. I'm very sympathetic to what her and her family went through. That doesn't substitute for proof against my client that he is responsible. And the Facebook post, she admitted that Facebook post from November 29th was not about her. And if the court were to grant this, it would impact his ability to go to his kids' games. There's no contact between these people. There hasn't been 3 to 4 years. He's just as impacted by this whole proceeding as by the allegations, limiting his daily life. He's not feels like he can't go out and be in the places he used to be in and with the people he wants to be with, because he's getting these false allegations thrown his way. And this isn't a criminal court, but we do have some level of proof that needs to be sustained, and it's pure speculation here. I'll just repeat that the standard of proof is preponderance, and law enforcement said we don't even have probable cause, which is a lower standard. So as much as I know, and I can tell the court is very sympathetic and should be for what the family went through, that doesn't give us the right to just falsely accuse somebody and just say, well, he's most likely, when there's numerous other people that weren't looked into. And quite frankly, it's a little bit mind-boggling. If it were me, I would have filed for a protection order right away. There wasn't any additional contact. There was no contact. They haven't been in contact in 3 to 4 years. So I would request the court deny it, absent some proof. I mean, I know she put everything she had on the table, but I just don't think it's enough. And judge, this has impacted my client. It is a big deal to be falsely accused of something so heinous. It's a big deal. And I know this has impacted him. I know it's impacted his family. And now it's having repercussions on his minor children because of a friend of hers. So we would ask the court to deny it. There's clearly nothing ever prohibiting anybody from doing public records requests. That won't stop even if the order was in place. Public records requests are deeply protected. So, Your Honor, we would request that the court deny the petition.
Thank you. Thank you both. So I was looking up a couple of statutes, and it is persuasive that probable cause is the standard for harassment. That would be probable cause for a criminal charge of harassment. The criminal elements for harassment are not the same as a protection order harassment. This court is finding that based on the petition, the testimony, the case record, that the restrained person is engaged in conduct that is against the protected person's rights. So when looking at RCW 9A46020, the definition for harassment, that's quite different than what needs to be proved in RCW. Sorry, I'm going to go back to
I had a feeling
7.105. So I am finding in favor of the petitioner.
Wow.
Granting an order protecting the petitioner.
Boo.
I do find it persuasive. I'm looking at a probable cause,
More likely
beyond a reasonable doubt. So what I'm looking at is this beyond a reasonable doubt that this harassment has occurred, and I'm considering the following facts. The timeline, it's not persuasive to me that the husband didn't file for a protection order. It's not persuasive to the court that criminal charges were not pursued. Again, those are different elements. It is persuasive to this court that the harassment stopped when a temporary order was put into place. The public comments, the Facebook posts with the initials of the respondent is all persuasive. It's all, in this court's opinion, does meet a preponderance of evidence standard. It may not reach a beyond a reasonable cause in a criminal matter, and it may not, to a police officer, amount to what they believe is probable cause for a criminal harassment order. But I'm finding that it is enough, and it is sufficient evidence in this case that there was suffering, there was dealing with angry and intoxicated individuals as a result of the behavior of the respondent, that this family has been hypervigilant, that they have been suffered anxiety.
Vigilant, not vigilant. You're stumbling a little. That's weird. Why? You think rethinking this decision? You should be. This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. It's political to me. It totally feels like it.
Have been anxious, have changed their daily patterns of living, have changed their routines, have had extra family supporting them, that they're basically, I'm finding it credible that they're living in a state of fear based on these actions. I am restraining Mr. Kohler from having any contact with Ms. Bergkamp. I'm also including Isaiah Bergkamp and Zane Bergkamp, the children, in this order.
Your Honor, they go to the same school as my clients.
So when that happens, what needs to happen is the school needs to be notified right away. If they're not in the same classroom, they'll be separated. The school will put a plan into effect that will keep the children a certain distance from each other. If they cannot do that, then you'll have to look at other accommodations. But in the past, when this has happened, these protection orders go to the school and the school has meeting after meeting to figure out if there's a way to make this happen. I have had children in the same school under a protection order and there hasn't been any contact. There's usually 1 or 2 lunch periods. There's usually different classes. I don't know the details and I'm not ruling on that. And that's not before the court, but that is something that will have to be worked out so that there's not a violation of the order.
Your Honor, just to be clear, his children would not be affected as far as it's only him. So I don't know what the school protocol is, and I'm happy to chat with them about it, but the kids would not be protected from each other.
She alluded to the fact that she's going to make them switch schools if they can't figure it out.
Indicating that there is no need for service and parties will receive a copy of this order today.
Guys, I think I want spaghetti for dinner. I'm hungry. So hungry. So hungry. Have a good test, Vivian. We'll be thinking of you. I'm fucking depressed about this case. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. Don't you dare, Sherry. Don't you fucking dare. Don't you dare. Ugh. I can't believe this. I think I would appeal it. I'm not sure how this would hold up on appeal. Was there even any evidence? I wish, Bill, no, but usually probably just like pasta with cheese and butter.
Indicating no harm, no contact directly or indirectly or through third parties.
Ugh.
Of the protected person or the minors. No harassing, following, monitoring, keeping under surveillance, physical or electronic, of the protected parties or the minors.
I know. She
And do not
was
come
so
within
over.
1,000 feet of the protected person or the minors.
1,000 feet?
The protected person's workplace. The protected person's vehicle. The protected person's residence.
Oh, they should have gone forward with the last judge. She wouldn't have done
With
this.
regard to contact with the school of the minors, I'm going to write in there that the children attend the same schools and that can be worked out through the school.
Wow, wow, wow. I'm disappointed. Hi, Wahoo. Wahoo. Hi, Sean. You guys are just coming at the tail end. If you don't want to be spoiled, go back. This judge is writing shit now, which is annoying me. Can you just hustle up, Judge?
Wish to keep your address confidential.
Please.
An NDA? Do you
I'm
wish
not
do you
ordering
want me to come
anything
over there
with-
and just lick your pussy a little bit? I could come over there and just lick your pussy a little bit. That's literally the vibes I'm getting from the judge right now. Hey, did you want me to just pull up your skirt and sort of pleasure you? What the fuck?
regard to intimate images, electronic monitoring or evaluations and treatment or personal belonging, assets, finances, or vehicles. I'm not issuing a surrender of weapons. And nothing regarding pets or vulnerable adults. Service is not required. All parties are present.
It's true, Julie. She's got that soft, sexy voice for the lady. She's like,
This
"Hi."
order was issued today at 10:30 a.m. I've signed the order. You can get copies of the order online or from the court clerk. The court will be in recess. Another judge will be out momentarily.
Did she just say I gotta go to the bathroom? Oh, her hair is worse standing up. Okay. Terrible. Terrible, terrible. This is Washington, Thurston County, Washington. Wow, what a case, guys. What a case. Okay, we're done. I know it was a bit of a short one, but we did two things. Last night, we did a chase late night. It was nuts. It went wild. We had a really good time. It was supposed to be a members only. It didn't turn out to be a members only, which means we have a members only makeup coming this week. But you can go right now, member or not, and go watch that chase if you want. You don't have to, but you can. I thought it was fun. I was like blown away. I also was not wearing pants. So take that as you may. I hope that everybody has a wonderful evening. I am so thankful that you're all here. Remember that I love you. I am proud of you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.